welcome to Datatopics Unplugged after a few glitches here and there. Thanks, Mike. What is Datatopics Unplugged? It's a casual, lighthearted, weekly short discussion, your cozy corner of the web, from chips to Mojo. Anything goes. Today is the 9th of February of 2024. My name is Murillo. I'm your host of today. I'm joined by always the Robin to my Batman. I guess it depends if you want to be Batman or Robin. Bart Smith.
Hi.
I'll let you think about that one. And today we have another guest. We have Nemanja.
Hello.
How are you doing, man?
Good, good. Nice
Yes.
Right.
Before we let Nemanja introduce himself, I'm just letting you know that we're also on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, X/Twitter. So feel free to check us out on YouTube. If you have a question, comment, feel free to also drop it in the there. We'll try to address it throughout the stream. So welcome. And Nemanja,
Yes.
how are you doing, man?
Good, man.
Yeah, long time no
Very
see.
good. Yeah, long time.
Yeah.
Long time. The offices still smell the same.
Yes.
In a good way. In a good way.
So you want to introduce yourself a bit for the people that don't know you yet?
What do you think they want to know?
Oh, everything. Everything, but not too much.
But should I say everything?
Go out.
No. Well, maybe shortly. A minute. My name is Nemanja Radojkovic, born and raised in Serbia. Came to Belgium around 10 years ago. I'm an electrical engineer by formal education, and I switched to data science right about the time when I came to Belgium. And I'm now here in this wonderful, exciting, booming domain for the last 10 years. So first as a data scientist and lately as a MLOps engineer. Yeah, so that's me.
Cool.
And you are also an esteemed tutor. You host.
Host? No, not a host.
You host,
I guess,
lessons on DataCamp?
Well, yeah, I had two courses on DataCamp. One was archived, as they would say. It served its lifetime, and the other one is the MLOps deployment and lifecycling, which is, let's say, still live since last year.
Nice.
DataCamp, both of them.
DataCamp, both. Yeah.
And also an international conference speaker as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Still got it.
Once in 2-3 years, let's say. Yeah.
And podcast famous as well, no?
Depends on how you define famous. Yeah. Sure. Among friends and family.
Cool. Nice to have you here. And maybe you mentioned the booming field of AI in the past 10 years.
Yeah, I think 10 years, like Nemanja's data science OG. Right?
Yeah, indeed. I think it was still emerging then. I think I remember seeing my friends finishing courses for like machine learning. I was like, what is this machine learning thing? And then it became everywhere. Huh? But I actually realized that we learned it at university. We learned all this theory, but it was not called machine learning, like in signal processing, systems modeling, and so forth. But yeah, the data science title is still as undefined as it was 10 years ago, and Python still is hard to package and ship. So
yeah, I feel like machine learning is a sexier title, no? Machine learning engineer sounds.
I think AI is more sexy.
I think now, yes.
We just talk about sexiness,
like AI engineer.
Yeah,
for the general public.
The buzziest thing. Yeah, indeed. But I think machine learning engineer is, for me, the most precise title. Then you really know what you're doing. You're doing machine learning.
What about MLOps engineer?
It's pretty clear, I would say. Still, yeah, pretty clear. But that's still an emerging field, I would say. I think it's still in kind of crystallization phase, I would say. Still.
What about it's not AI related necessarily, but DevOps engineer? What do you think of that job description? If you think MLOps engineer is pretty spot on, DevOps engineer?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a very mature technology behind it, frameworks and everything. It's so mature that now we have difficulties changing DevOps to introduce MLOps.
True. We need a new title.
Yeah.
I think what you're a bit hinting towards, Murillo, is that there is a discussion on whether or not DevOps is a specific role, or that it should be like a way of working.
Yeah,
it's a bit what you're hinting towards, right?
Yeah, I think it's a very opinionated topic, I feel, because some people are like, no, DevOps engineer doesn't make any sense because DevOps, there's no engineer, is more of a mentality, philosophy. But then you can see the same thing about MLOps. But I do, if I hear someone is an MLOps engineer, it makes sense that, like, okay, you're not necessarily building models, but you know what they are, but you're putting models in production. You're deploying models, right? MLOps, if you say that it's the philosophy, methodology, mentality, whatever, okay. but I guess an MLOps engineer will be a ML deployer engineer, I guess.
Yeah.
Someone that
Yeah.
deploys models, right?
Yeah, I think it's often like that, and it's like that in our case also in my company currently. But what we are working towards is to, I think that's the ideal way you should do it, is to be an enabler for the data scientists to have as much of self-service as possible.
Yeah.
That's how I see it, and I think it's the worst example is when the data scientist needs to depend on the MLOps or DevOps engineer for every step on the way. That's, I think, the bad way to do it when you like have this complete segregation. I think that beats the whole idea of DevOps, which should be this famous continuum from development to deployment.
I think it also is a bit of like a maturity curve linked to it. Like DevOps is a bit, or MLOps for that matter, in a more specific niche field, is like, in my eyes, a bit of a set of best practices that you apply to continuous deployment of data products or machine learning models. But if you, as a company or as a team, you don't yet have these best practices, like it takes a specific role to introduce this.
Yeah.
Like it's maybe also a bit
as well.
Yeah.
But I also think like this MLOps engineer kind of pattern, it is something that you kind of see and you read. It's like, okay, MLOps, everyone should do it. The data scientist should be thinking of these things. But I feel like in practice, the skills you need for deploying models, building systems, all these things is different from the ones like the mathematical thinking, building models, data leakage, all these things, business. So I think the skill sets are different. I also feel like the fields evolve somewhat fast, like the tooling and whatnot. So I think
which one, the MLOps field?
MLOps field now more. I guess the data science one now it's a bit more stable. Let's say.
Well, I don't know, how do you count ChatGPT and all these LLMs?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You just wrap an API.
But then
you
it's
have
like
the LLM ops, like a subdomain of
there's AI ops, right?
Yeah,
there's everything ops, right?
For PowerPoint ops, come on.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Yeah, there's indeed, right? But I do think it's like they diverge quite a bit. So I feel like in practice you see the successful teams, they kind of come up with this deployer enabler and the data scientists and this and this.
Yeah, I think in our team it works really well. So I think we still need a bit more. I think the ratio of data scientists to MLOps engineers is too high now. We have like 3 to 1 now.
3 data scientists to 1 MLOps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But still there's a lot of data science work, so it makes sense. But somewhere around that for me, it's also like 3 to 1, 2 to 1. I think that's a good ratio. But I think it emerged as like a natural product of when you think about how many things you have to do to build and deploy a machine learning system, you realize it's too much to ask from one person.
Yeah.
So either you have the same old school, I would say, way of doing it, of treating each project like a unique piece of software, and then somebody needs to build a model, somebody else needs to package it as a piece of software and deploy it. Or I think what is the new common approach, which you hear everywhere, is like the platform development, where you should basically build something which is like a self-service platform where the data scientists can make their models, push their models, like click release them as the API or something like that. But I still did not see a case where you did not still need to do some programming on top of that.
You mean you as the MLOps engineer?
Yeah. Like there's always some kind of extra logic that you really need to code into there.
Yeah, but I think it's also an ideal, right? Ideally, you want data scientists to be able to do everything and just click, and then if there's a bug, it's supported by the MLOps person.
I don't think they necessarily have to do everything, but I think they should be left alone to think about data science. Because I remember when I was doing data science, I was frustrated at one point that I had like 80-90% of work which was not actually data science. So you make a random forest model. 80% accuracy. Okay, good to go. For now, let's try to deploy it. And then you're working on like provisioning the infrastructure and making the pipelines and doing all of these things. And you're thinking, but should I have maybe made the model better?
Yeah.
Who's gonna think about it?
But I think what I'm thinking, that data scientists should be able to do it all. I mean, they should be able to push it to production, but not to build the components. Like if it's just like you package it a certain way and then you press a button and it's there, because everything
for the
else
deployment, I agree. I agree. The data scientists should be able to.
Well, I think that's the ideal, at least.
Right.
Like
that's the objective.
That's what we're striving for.
Yeah.
And now there's the whole Gen AI story, right? Like the LLM ops, like we mentioned, which is a bit of a Bart's like coming, but there's a bit of the
segue coming.
Segue incoming. You have an alert like no, because there's the LLM ops. I think it's LLM ops, the LLMs, the Gen AI, which I think it's an interesting one because it's definitely AI related, but it's not like a data scientist, traditional data scientist, hardcore that knows all the math behind these things. he or she will have a hard time probably, right? Like building a system, because in the end you kind of call an API and everything around that is more software engineering related, no?
That's the evolution that we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
Like we see it with LLMs very much more large generic models that you can, even with zero shot, get a lot of performance for specific cases, which are simply behind an API that you call.
Indeed.
But there is still a component to that. I think even if it is just an API and it's not a model you're training, like it's still, you need to do experiments with the prompt. You need to track a bit, like what is the performance? Why do we think this is robust? Like it's
metrics.
Still,
you need to define metrics.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
you
still
need to analyze what you have the error analysis. Like where is your model doing well, or the API, whatever. Where is it doing well? Which cases are bad? Yeah, I think you still have. I
think like take the black box philosophy. Model is a black box. API is also black box. Treat it like that.
Indeed. Yeah, and then there's also the whole prompt engineering thing and the whole.
Is that real? But is prompt engineering real?
As a role, you mean?
Prompt engineer?
It's the sexiest job of 2024. Huh?
Based on
prompt engineer.
Says Forbes or somebody.
No, so probably says something, right? I just said it. I just said it.
Yeah.
No, I think it's already a bit like this was 2023.
Yeah.
But actually, I heard that it was a thing in 2023, but it also died in 2023.
Oh.
Because I think also they started with the models that self-engineer the prompts. I mean, I think even the multimodal stuff, right?
Like, I think where we saw it, the title prompt engineer popping up is with things like the earlier image generation models, where you had to be very specific. Like, what are if you add this word, if you add that style, if you add that number, then it does this to the image. Well, today we also see that there's much more become natural language.
Yeah, right? And I think a big thing is like how descriptive you need to be, how descriptive can you be, right? Because there's all the context thing, right?
Yeah, I just don't understand it as a job. I don't understand that this requires a special position. You know, I see it as a skill, like Googling, but you don't have a Google query engineer, you know, like, oh, this guy just Googles. You know? that's a software engineer, bro. That's me. You understand what I mean? So prompt engineer, if you would hire that person.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hyped up term. I can imagine that there are some jobs that do a lot of front engineering for their day-to-day. Like copywriting.
Yeah, but even programming, you can say you're always, if you're using Copilot, you're doing prompts, but it's not your title.
It's a skill. I think it was very hyped up. What we were saying is LLM experts, basically.
Well, what's that again? I mean, LLM experts in using LLMs, deploying LLMs, in fine-tuning LLMs. What's an LLM?
I think what I heard is an AI engineer. That's what I heard, I think, from Vercel even or something. They were saying AI engineers are the people that build systems or applications using Gen AI. So basically just call an API, do the prompt engineering. That's an AI engineer. Oh. But again, it's how you call it, right? Like I think, In
the end, you're going to do SQL. In the end, they're going to export it to Excel.
Okay. Yeah. And about the prompt, I've been trying to hint this a bit, but there was something like, so actually last week, I don't think we did it in the pod. We didn't talk about it in the pod, but we had a chat bar. But there was some theory. There was some conspiracy theories that they were training GPT-6 or 5.
Hello.
Yeah, because I just saw here 6, but 6 months ago. Never mind.
Okay. I thought you were gonna go about the leaked quote unquote system prompt. But there are, so my experience, and I think a lot of people experience that use ChatGPT a lot, is that ChatGPT's performance on certain domains has degraded.
And like what?
Especially on where you see this a lot is on large bodies of text. So you have a large body of text as input, and I ask, for example, translate this full body of text, not just give me a sum of, translate it word for word into another language, which is a big job. And what you see now, and you hear a lot on Reddit on this as well, is that there's a lot of laziness going on, meaning that half of it was translated and suddenly stops. And you don't get any more output.
I think it's a bit lazy. Like, it's funny that you describe it as laziness, because it's a very human attribute, right? It's like the model is lazy. It's just like he just gave up in the middle.
It became a Gen Zer or something. He just quit.
Fell asleep.
He just quit his job. Like, no, sorry, it's too much, man. I'm getting paid enough.
One of the hypotheses in the community is that OpenAI has taken resources away from ChatGPT 4 to train ChatGPT 5. It's a hypothesis. Just thinking about this hypothesis, I find it hard to understand how less resources would introduce laziness, but it's a hypothesis from a technical point of view.
Well, if they want to optimize, I'm just thinking they optimize like lag and response time, and then you say, okay, you need to produce something within the same SLA.
Maybe that is indeed introduced.
And then you can say, so then you can only use less resources and just blurt out what you can and feed, how should you say, maybe they're focusing on, maybe that query of yours is, meanwhile, they can serve 5 other queries or 10 other queries. They're just like, sorry, man, with your Polish translation of your haiku poetry or something.
Potentially.
You're talking from personal experience, that example? Yeah. It was oddly specific.
And now recently, yesterday, I want to say, there was this
laziness is part of the prompt. Is that what we're seeing?
No, not really. But what came up yesterday on X, I think, Murilo just put it on the screen, is that there is, quote unquote, leaked a system prompt for ChatGPT. So you can basically ask ChatGPT for please clean UI. We're talking about the UI, right? ChatGPT.openai.com, not the API.
Yeah,
the user interface. You can ask it, clean conversation starting from scratch. You can ask it, show me everything that was described to you before, word for word. And what it will give you is what we call the system prompt, like the initial instruction that OpenAI gives the model. Yeah, and it is actually, and we link it in the show notes. It's 1,700 tokens, which is big.
Has anybody tried to do it, or are we all trusting some?
I tried it.
You tried it, and
I tried it. You get it. Okay. You got it more or less word for word.
Okay.
And there are instructions on, for example, for DALL-E, if DALL-E gets called, return maximum 1 image. These type of things.
Yeah.
It gives instructions to ChatGPT that it has access to a browser function and how to use that browser function to query stuff. Like these type of things are in the system prompt, and it's a big system prompt. And there are also some discussion, like potentially, because it is so big, this also has an impact on the laziness. It's
but I thought there was also no, because I guess the system prompt is the input, right? And the context is because I was wondering if somehow the 1,700 tokens will take up your space to actually input stuff and return stuff.
I don't think so, because it's very clear on how many. Well, I want to say it's very clear how many tokens you can actually input, but it's clear for the API. I'm not sure if it's actually very clearly described for the user interface.
Okay,
it's a good question, actually.
Yeah, and I guess the laziness is the. I guess they were saying they were lazy in the prompt engineering, I guess.
Well, there was some hinting towards it, but so there's some hinting. It's not explicitly in the prompt, but it does, for example, say not to be elaborate. It says give answer in two sentences, be it to the point, that these type of things which might influence how you interpret the output as laziness. It's not explicit. Be lazy.
Yeah. And that would explain your experience with it.
Potentially, because a lot of the hypothesis here, like the other thing is like there's potentially continuous fine-tuning going on. Like a recent, not that long ago, 2-3 months ago, a new model was released. If that is being fine-tuned with less resources, because resources are being used for GPT-5, that potentially could also show a degrading of. But there's a lot of.
You mean that fine-tuning can degrade it? That it's not fine. Then it's not fine-tuning, huh?
That is true. That is true. Yeah, but there are less resources there. But then there's a whole other topic that there's a lot of new information that is Gen AI generated that is now also being used for fine-tuning.
I think that's something when you think about like 10 years in advance.
Yeah.
What will be the output? Of these models, because you have all this garbage coming in. It's like cannibalizing. It's like eating itself.
It is very generic language all over.
Yeah.
Exhilarating, fascinating world. Everything will be.
What do you think? Like when people become aware that, like, okay, if I write something original, ChatGPT is going to take it. Will then everything be paywall? Will we say I will not give any like a token of my text without you paying for it.
What I think will happen is that if you apply for a job 10 years from now and you make a typo in the motivation letter, people say, oh, yeah, this is a real person. We need this one.
Hire this guy.
The more typos, the better.
And then people are going to be like prompting, add some typos. Yeah, okay. That's
No, but I'm just thinking of like losing the skills as the society or whatever, as the industry.
That is true. Yeah.
You know,
What skills?
Programming skills in our industry, let's say, or thinking skills.
If you just, and people say, well, it's okay, you still need to understand it. But if you look at the evolution that we've gone through, it's such a short moment, 10 years from now.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine what it'll be. Huh?
Yeah. My son did his, I caught him doing his homework with ChatGPT. Yes. I was like, no, I didn't do it. I saw you in the history.
I saw exhilarating there.
Yeah. Between my, between all my tech questions, I just saw something in Dutch. I'm like, wait, I don't speak Dutch.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Yeah.
Caught
But he knows how to access. He's 10 years old. He knows how to access. It was a long conversation. But the funny thing was, he was surprised. But Dad, he does not know all these things. Like, for example, they had to do an assignment for some kind of a song. And he asked, what are the instruments in the song? He's like, but they got it all wrong. Like, there is no, I heard the drums and it said there's no drums. Like, why do you think it listens to it?
Funny,
It's funny because you see the expectations.
Yeah. Because there is a natural language conversation, you assume that there is some intelligence.
Yeah, that it actually is. And it has this like false confidence.
Yeah.
Just saying, it has this, it has that.
Yeah.
Does it ever say, sorry, man, I have no idea. I didn't listen to this song. Does it exist? Because you know the examples with like bears in space. You know that they asked, like, the guy asked it, like, how many bears did Russia send in space? And he got the answers like 60. And there was never bears. There was like a dog, Laika or whatever. And they're like, okay, well, what were the names of the bears? And then there was like, Rushkas and whatever. It made up like 60 names for the bears, which sound like very Russian. It made up the whole story. So I think that needs to be really solved.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But actually, like, I had experience talking to a colleague that they were like, I think I was talking about my dad, how when he was writing his thesis, whatever, he needed to know something. He literally went to the library. He asked for a book. He would open the book, go to the table of contents, go find information, read it, put it on the book. There's a reference. And I was like, yeah, man, like now with like Google and stuff, you have like overflow information, everything is there. I couldn't imagine writing my thesis without like having to go to the library for doing my research. And then
without
this kid is like,
without Control F.
Yeah, but then this kid, he looked at me, he's like, oh yeah, I cannot even imagine writing my thesis without ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I was like, the hell? Like,
yeah.
I was like, you do.
I guess it escalated quickly.
Yeah. And it's like, and actually, we spoke in the past that ChatGPT was released in November of 2023 as well.
Yeah.
It's not that long, huh?
Yeah, but what I see, it really is, it really inflates the content without adding value in many cases. So people write, like really long, elaborate posts, and I'm like, wait, I'm looking for 2 lines,
And the next person will paste this, and I say, give me a bullet point summary.
Yeah, indeed. So you go from,
and then you need to forward it, and you say, and I need to look a bit professional. Like you paste it. Can you expand this for me and write a nice article about this?
Yeah. Maybe just a quick correction. November of 2022. I think it's 2023. 2022.
Right.
But interesting you mentioned if you're losing the skills, because I came across this article that Bart will put on the screen, that generating code was never the hard part. So they do allude a bit to that. But basically, like TLDR, he's just saying that some of the things you also reference, like ChatGPT will never ask a follow-up question, right? ChatGPT will never say, okay, for example, he has an example here, like an adder function, which basically adds 2 numbers. And the prompt was write an adder function in TypeScript, and you would do it. But the better answer would be, how many numbers are you adding? What happens if you don't have any number?
What's your budget?
Yeah, but like a lot of different things in terms of
who pays.
Do you even need this function?
But like, what are the specs? What is the feature that you're creating?
Exactly.
Right?
So he even mentions here that the value that he brings is not. The value that he brings is before the code is generated, right? So what are the things that are actually needed? Like asking the questions, why is this function even there in the right place? Do we need to put this function here? Is it part of there? What is a clean API? And he's saying that, ChatGPT, like it generates code, but that was never why I was there. It was more to ask the questions. What's the problem? What are the functions that need to be generated?
I think this is a very timely discussion. Like this is your response to this will be completely different today than 10 years from now.
Yeah, true.
And you will like 10 years from now, like it's still valid that you need to be very specific on what is it that you actually want to build. But maybe you don't even need to look at the code anymore.
But sometimes the code is the problem, really. I mean, let's be honest, huh?
Like my code.
No, but it happens that I don't work I mean, I work daily. I have some bash scripts, but I'm far from a bash expert, and I've always like had to double check and think twice. And if their ChatGPT was for me, a savior.
Yeah, that's
really okay. Just like a stupid thing. How do I write an if-else statement? And how do I fail at the first fail command, which is like the biggest frustration with bash for me that continues just plowing through the whole script. So I think also learning new languages as a programmer, it will help you immensely if you know one thing. Okay, how do I do this then in Python or JavaScript or whatever? How do I make a structure for Android app, and so that you get like all the boilerplate things,
exactly.
Which is probably where it should be really good, because those are the things which are like the patterns that we'll see many times, and you can say, okay, this is a good, I don't know, Python project structure with the PyProject TOML configured to use rough and whatever, and then you just focus on the core logic that you want to that you need to do.
Yeah, I think I also think that the systems will get better, right? And I think you will have a better understanding of what your project is, right? Like Git, you have a lot of files, and the files are going to be related to each other. And I think understanding more the project, and I think there are like source
and for
maps.
GitHub Copilot, this is already
the case
to some extent. Like it has more context than just what you're writing. It also has a context of all the files and stuff that you do just delete.
GPT 3.5, isn't that the issue?
Good question. I don't know, to be honest.
Because I heard people saying that they get much better code from ChatGPT 4 than from the Copilot.
I think it depends really about how you're using it. So if you like boilerplate, I tend to use ChatGPT 4. Say, write me some like a starter for this or that project. While I'm working on the boilerplate, I tend to use Copilot, GitHub Copilot, so really like smart auto-completion. It's a bit my workflow.
Yeah, but that's also helpful. Like when you had to change things 5 times. I remember I used the tab 9. That was also like immensely helpful. And I was amazed also already then without ChatGPT how clever it was. It's really predicting like 5 lines ahead what I want to do.
I also like to use GenAI. So there's a find.com. Maybe I'll put it here on the screen as well, that I quite like. So it's kind of like AI generated, AI assisted Googling, right? So how to do I don't know, Fibonacci in Rust, right? So basically what it does is that I think it does a Google search or something, right? And then it fetches, and it probably has, because this is for developers, right? And then I think they put it in the context and they give something, right? But sometimes when I describe my problem in natural language, especially for things like when I'm trying to learn Rust, that maybe it gives me a different direction that I didn't think of. Maybe I think this is the solution. The solution is like, I don't know, how to, you cannot have subclasses in Rust, this composition, but maybe it's like, oh no, maybe you need traits. And I was like, shit. True, I didn't really look into that, right? So I think sometimes there's these two kind of, in a way, it's a bit of extremes, because one is you know exactly what you want and you just need to get there.
Yeah.
But I also think if you have a very, like, you're a bit stuck in an open playing field, I think it can give you a bit of creativity or like brainstorm, like, oh no, maybe you go in a different direction, right? So
I guess if I would have to write something with like asynchronous code in Python, I would use it a lot for starting, because that's not something I do daily.
But the thing, and I guess the point of this article as well is, how do you even know you need asynchronous code, right? And that's what the author is arguing, that is where the software engineer comes in, right? So he even mentions in the bottom here, of course, this is a bit unfair. ChatGPT is a generative AI model and not designed to be a software engineer, but that's the point, right? It's not going to be a software engineer.
But I think the question is a bit like, what is the definition of a software engineer 10 years from now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That is something that will change.
Yeah, it's a whole discussion now. It's like you see how big a part of software engineering today is what I would call system integration. It's not actually coding, it's like linking, configuring this to talk to that, configuring this to talk to that. Like in the industry, you have like what they call OEMs, like original equipment manufacturers. The hard industry is about people that make like a motor or make a sensor. And then you have the system integrators. And they're the people that put the sensor in place, connected with wires, with a PLC, with something. And I think we also see this like separation of programmers into, I would say, system integrators and original software manufacturers, how to call it that.
Yeah.
Where you need to know both now. I think it's not such a clear cut.
Yeah.
But
you still need a certain expertise. So that is a bit but the definitions may be changed. Like today, if you make your own clothes and you want to sell them online, then and you want to build an app for that. If you want to build a custom app, you're going to ask a software engineer, right?
Yeah.
And 10 years from now, you're still going to ask someone else probably, and they're going to heavily leverage LLMs, but you still need someone with that expertise to build an online app, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and also how far are we going to go, right? Because I think this, like you said, it's a timely discussion.
But the thing is, evolutions I've never seen this acceleration in evolutions. That has been very like no one saw this coming.
Shift. It's
exactly.
really like an impulse signal at what one moment, deep impact. Style.
But I also heard like another argument from this that the skills that we have for solving problems, there's not software related necessarily, right? Like you have, I don't know, you can think even on an AI use case, right? You're trying to predict churn and is trying to, okay, churn is this, but we need to frame it like this. And how are we going to frame it like this? Is this acceptable? Is this actionable? Like the skill of solving problems, it's something that if it's not going to be code, it's going to be something else, right? Like, I don't know, you can even think of programming languages, right? How before you had the lower level programming languages, you had to know about all these things, and then all these things were abstracted. And it's like, okay, does that mean that all these skills are for nothing, that we're doomed? Like, no, these skills are still useful, but you're going to be using in different contexts. And even if ChatGPT now can generate code and even like some sophisticated patterns and whatnot, the art of like the skill of solving problems and knowing what you want and knowing what's good and what's not good, it's also like, that's not going to go anywhere. That's also what another point I've
well, I agree. I think people will soon realize that maybe after a short honeymoon, they will get into hard problems and they will see that maybe their ChatGPT generated application maybe works for a week or two, and then it starts crashing and then you need to debug it. Maybe ChatGPT helps you once or twice, but for many things, can it, and then you try refactoring. Can you refactor? Do you have the tests, And I think after a while, we will settle in some kind of an like optimal approach. I think it will be clear that it's not a magic wand.
See what the future brings. Because there's some discussion on this fast evolution, this tectonic shift, in the sense that there's a question whether or not the current architecture will remain scalable. So far,
what architecture?
The transform architecture.
Okay.
Where we've seen from the beginning the major change of improvement since the attention paper came out in 2008 has been throw more data and throw more resources. Well, throw more data, but because of that you need more resources. And I think it's unknown whether or not this scaling will hold, and two, whether or not we have the resources for it, because GPUs, CPUs are not easy.
Then you come to the architecture of the computational architecture, which is I think also something which people are mentioning, is how this is also legacy of previous decades, and how this could also maybe will have to be reinvented in order to allow faster and more efficient computation.
Indeed.
Meanwhile, invest in NVIDIA.
Or NVIDIA or OpenAI, right?
Or OpenAI. We've seen a news article.
So if you lose your job, you get the money from the stocks, and you can live from that.
Yeah, you can leverage it. Offset the risk.
It's called hedging,
It's like hedging.
Yeah. So if it takes your job,
but what is
buy a beach house, huh?
Well, yeah,
man.
Just like, or you can just endless possibilities here. But what happened about OpenAI and chips and whatnot, Bart?
Well, there was an article. I'm looking at the screen now. Of
this beautiful red screen.
This beautiful. There was an article yesterday that Sam Altman tries to seek trillions of dollars to reshape the business of chips and AI, which is of course big news. But there is not tons of details in the article. There is more or less the objective is to greatly increase the global semiconductor manufacturing capacity, where there are definitely a big where there are a lot of shortages. They're looking for investors, under which the United Arab Emirates. And this is really to further let the landscape around AI grow, to enable it to grow, to have the basic infrastructure and the means in terms of hardware in place.
Imagine this. Imagine that anticlimax. Like we just run out of copper, man.
Yeah.
After everything.
Yeah.
Sorry, no more copper.
And it's
Scavenge your old cards.
Indeed. And it's interesting to see some Altman do this. And while I'm saying this, I'm wondering, like, is it actually under the umbrella of OpenAI that they're doing it, or if it's some Altman project? I don't know, to be honest. But it's something that we've seen from other big players as well. Microsoft that launched or announced its Moja chip, NVIDIA competitor for more server-based for their cloud, basically, services.
It's Wait, is it competing with some NVIDIA product or which one?
I don't know exactly. Like, let's say 800,
not the
something
GPU,
like
not
that.
The GPU, one of these.
No, the professional ones, the 800s, and those ones. I doubt that it competes with the H100. So we see a lot of people doing this. I think the specificity of this industry is that there is basically one single player that does all the manufacturing. So you see
the Taiwan Semiconductor.
Yeah, exactly.
Good job.
TSMC has like 90% of the industry.
Yes. By TSMC.
Also wondering
Right
what's OpenAI will leverage. I think it's also very specific knowledge. I think it's hard to set up something yourself. I know in China there have been initiatives. So far, they're not really competing with TSMC, but there's a lot of investment there. And what you see is that a lot of the players today, like Microsoft themselves, I think as well, AMD to some extent, they all use TSMC.
Yeah.
So it's also
they're like the total meta players, man.
Yeah.
You know, so like NVIDIA, AMD, they profit from AI and crypto, and like these guys profit from all of them. You know, so whatever happens, like ching, that's
crazy.
TSMC gets a buck.
But it's so what they're the interest is of OpenAI. What they're trying to do is interesting, and I hope it also creates a bit more of a competitive landscape in the manufacturing domain. But let's see. I don't think it's an easy thing to solve.
Yeah, but there's actually quite a lot of. I mean, Google had
it's a question like, why is it so 90%? So there is 10% already. Okay, so somebody can manufacture chips already. It's not the only factory in the world. So why is it 90% there? What's the reason? Is it the price? Is it the
startup
precision?
idea?
Is it like the technology? What's the reason why everybody's making it there? Right?
So I'm absolutely not an expert in these things. That's fair said. But how I understand that, what is extremely hard to do is to go on to make the details of the chips on a very, very microscopic scale.
The little logo to put it.
Not the logo. But to make this connection at a really miniature scale, that requires a lot of R&D, a lot of IP as well. And TSMC is ahead of everybody else. And it's very hard for anyone else to compete with it. And at the same time, like from the moment that they can go smaller and just put more on a single chip, they are again way ahead of everybody else. So they remain a bit a single player.
They're just maintaining the gap, and probably money is involved because nobody's going to pay for somebody else. But for more money if it's the same quality or something. Of course, you're gonna look for the cheapest one. Right?
That's the thing, and I think it's also because it's extremely hard to reproduce what to do. This,
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I see. Actually,
so we're in the hands of Taiwan.
Yes, in that sense, I guess. Unless the money, you want to start something. You seem very passionate. It's like, how come no one is doing it?
Yeah, man, I cannot solder a resistor. I would burn myself.
I have a soldering device. I can bring it.
Yeah.
Let's try to solder the chip.
Detecting. You know, the thing that detects studs in the wall. I have that.
I bring the soldering. You bring a stud detector. I was halfway there,
and then we play music or something.
Yeah,
we dance. And then we dance.
Yeah, I think. Bit force a segue here. This is the story about increasing speed and whatnot. It's like it's very relevant, not just in the AI space, but also
Mojo.
like he's cheating. He's looking at my screen, man.
Yes. Well,
yeah, so there's
in my time, we did not use ChatGPT. We just looked over each other's shoulder
just
and
copied.
stole the homework.
yeah, right. But yeah, in Python, there was Python 3.11, which was the faster C Python. There's the story. Then there's Mojo.
But what is Mojo? Maybe explain for the people that.
Mojo is,
heard
I guess you could. It's a programming language, a Python dialect, kinda.
Python superset.
It's the superset. Yeah.
It's not yet a superset. It aims to be a superset. Well, actually, like I'm saying this from months ago, right? But I doubt that they're already a superset of Python. But like there are some things. For example, it's how do you say it? Like strongly typed, I guess. Like you cannot if you say x equals to 1 and x equals to 1.2, error. So just by that very basic thing, like it's not like not every Python program is going to run
Is it
there.
optionally strongly typed, or is it
There's
mandatory strongly?
Actually, I think
typed?
what I mean is statically typed. No, like if x is a
Static
string,
typing, yeah.
x cannot be a floating point afterwards, right? Like that's but so there are some differences, like that's for sure. For example, we didn't even have a dictionary type, but the thing is that they were trying to overcome these challenges by making sure that you can have interoperability from Mojo to Python. So you can have like a Python object that can be converted into a Mojo object, which I also tried but didn't work out very well. So it's also early stages.
and one of their objectives is really performance, right?
Yes. So that's basically they want to be a Python superset that is way more performant.
And
What
is it
about
then
libraries?
Yeah, so they were working with that as well, like how they can import other things. The trickier part, and that's not just exclusive to Mojo, is that Python, one of the reasons why it's popular is because you have stuff built in C++, C, Rust, right? So it's not pure Python code, because if it was pure Python code, you could just kind of interpret it in Mojo, right?
And is the premise then that so for in Python, if we need something performant, we need to build something that connects to Rust, to something that connects to C. And is then the premise of Mojo that you don't need to do this, you can build everything natively in Mojo?
Yes. So maybe I'm just also disclaimer, I'm not an expert in Mojo, right? I looked into it, I tried it out, I tried some personal examples as well. So not just going from the documentation to get a quote unquote real experience. And yeah, that's the idea. So actually like Mojo, so take another step back, it's a superset of Python because the Python syntax should all work and it should already be faster. But if you're really going for the super performant, you have another API. So for example, you have def for defining functions, DEF. And in Mojo, if you want to have something lower level, then you can have FN. So to define a function, right? But then if you do FN, you are obliged, quote unquote, to use the quote unquote typing hints. So what would type in Python be typing hints? Mojo is built for so Mojo came out of Mojo's from modular.
Sorry, and you can combine the two. Can you have an untyped and a typed function in the same script in the same program?
You could.
Okay.
You could. I believe you could.
But in the end, is it compiled or is it?
It is compiled.
It's compiled.
It's compiled.
Okay.
So even if you just have the Python syntax, it's compiled. So Mojo is from a company called Modular. I have it also. Maybe you want to put it on the screen. But
is it modular with a J?
Cool.
No.
That would be a good one.
Yeah, modular.
But and also the reason why it also made some noise is because the co-creator of Mojo, or one of the creators, is that guy that created Swift, right? And also Jeremy Howard, he's a big proponent of this as well. So Modular is a company that has other things as well. So let's change this tab instead. Oh, Max Platform, dude, this is new stuff. But they have like different products, right? And the idea is that they had an engine that was for transformer models to run efficiently on hardware. Okay. So they had this. And to do this, they ended up creating Mojo. So Mojo wasn't the first goal, but it was something that they kind of had to create. So even in one blog post, they said...
So that's the risk. Whenever you do something,
you
will eventually invent a language.
But that's what they said. They said like Mojo, and I think it was actually kind of smart. They said Mojo already has a success story, right? Like it's already a success because we use Mojo to create this platform, right? So you see some very specific AI stuff like tensor types built into Mojo, right? So yeah, if you want the lower level stuff, you can use the FN, you can use this, which actually kind of looks like Rust syntax, to be honest. Like you don't have, at least a while ago, you didn't have the class keyword in Mojo, but you had the struct, right?
So this is functional then. When you go to the static
to
static mode, then it's a functional language, like a pure functional language.
Yeah.
Because you have the
Yeah.
struct, you have the functions.
But I think they wanted to add the class because they wanted to be a superset still. Because like
okay.
class was not available, so they wanted to
Okay.
be true superset.
What I find interesting on the evolution, so it made a lot of noise in the community. Even though I have the feeling last month it was a bit more quiet, but it made a lot of noise in the community, but it's not open source.
No. So actually they announced that they open sourced the docs.
No.
Yeah. So
You can fix our typos.
Yeah. So or you can add stuff, right?
Oh, I'm honored. I'm honored.
And their reason was like we don't want to.
They're shy.
Yeah. I think they said they wanted to make speed. They wanted to increase the speed, crank it up, and their argument is it's easier to do it if you're in a smaller group, right? Which
Well,
but
I'm fine with it.
But the promise is that it will be open source. It will be open source soon.
What do you mean? What will be open source? The whole language?
Yes.
Hmm.
That's as I understand it. So why am I bringing this up? Because this as I know Nemanja, I know you're also Rust enthusiast. Let's say.
Are you
Rust curious?
Are you a crustacean?
No.
No, never. He said it so quick. He was like,
I was already thought about this.
Yeah, I was like,
No.
no. I know also there's someone that programs in Rust is a crustacean or rustacean. In Mojo, you know how the proposal was from the creator?
Please tell me.
Guess. Take a guess.
I will not say I have an
You have a dirty mind.
incorrect one.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm not gonna.
No.
No, nothing.
Tell us.
A magician. Come on, I gotta give to them. I thought it was pretty clever. Also, maybe one other side note: the fire emoji is actually a valid extension for the file. So if you do like main.fire, that's a valid emoji.
That is too much.
That's what we needed. That's what we needed, man.
That is-
2024, please.
Yeah.
Fire emoji.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is too much marketing. Like this, like just the tagline: outperforming Rust.
Yeah. So
Or if you go to the previous one, if you where you were,
this one.
like the world's only extensible and unified AI inference platform.
Yeah.
Like that's such generic terms. Like, what does it even mean?
Yeah. They also had the guy from Fast AI to come and like do a pitch, like why you think this is the way to go, blah blah. So a lot of different
looks
ways.
like some kind of a sound system.
Yeah, it does, right?
Like something
It does.
4D cinema. What?
But you're a fan, right?
Of Mojo?
Yeah.
I thought I was a bit disappointed when I tried it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just because it was early.
I mean, I think a big
And
part of it is
It's a bit weird that they say that they use this internally to build this, and when you try it out, it still looks like someone that just started developing a language.
yeah. And the thing is, so
I think today everybody tries to sell it first and then build it.
Well,
That sounds like
You need to say that you outperform Rust, basically.
Yeah.
Tell us, Marina, it outperforms Rust.
That's what it says here as well.
Yeah.
But the thing, so maybe another thing, like because they equated a lot to Python.
Yeah.
But when I was looking at examples, when I was looking at this, like they have repos, right? But then you look at the code and it doesn't it looks like a language that kind of looks like Python sometimes. It looked like someone knew Python and they were
Python's
inspired.
poor brother.
Yeah, and then they just came up with this language, right? It doesn't look like Python code, but I also think it's because today the people that are interested in Mojo are the people that are more tech savvy, that they're interested in this low level stuff, performance. So they're not going to stay
IT
on
hipsters.
Yeah, but
There's
they're
always
not. They're not. But they're not going to stay on the Python API side, right? They're going to go in the FN, the struct, the registers, all these things, right? So then you look some things like, oh, this looks like a decorator, but then you see register, passable, whatever, and it's like, yeah, but I have no idea. I've never seen that before, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's also because indeed the people that are interested, the people that create
Yeah, I see what you
use
mean, yeah.
cases
Fair
are
point.
yeah. But anyways, this is something that caught my attention because Mojo is fast. That's a promise, but it's not as popular. And then someone decided to compare with Rust, which I think it's bold. I think Rust is a very big community, and everyone is like, yeah, Rust.
Yeah, that's the selling point of Rust.
Yeah. So here's
Just
like community spotlight: outperforming Rust DNA sequence parsing benchmarks by 50% with Mojo.
Yeah, they didn't say who wrote. If I wrote Rust code, it would probably outperform it by 1,000%. But
different thing with
saw-
benchmarks.
yeah, indeed.
Yeah, but like even here, see, and again, that's also another thing with benchmarks, right? I always have a bit of a healthy skepticism because it's always like, yeah, it's faster, but in one you're optimizing everything, and the other one you just did the fastest thing you could, like just get out the door, right? But here apparently it says Mohammed achieved 100 times benchmark improvements over Python and 50% improvements over the fastest implementation of Rust, which I also think is a big. How do you know it's the fastest? Like maybe.
Well, the question
Yeah,
is, of course, how much time and effort did they put in optimizing all these?
Yeah, but I think even Rust, I as far as I could understand it from the little amount of time I played with it, it actually, I think it's not so popular because it's fast. I think speed is the benefit of it, but I think the type safety, I think that's what people say, like because usually you have people switching from like C++, C, where they have like hell of their life with all the whatever.
I think mainly memory safety
leaks and whatever, and so Rust solves it. So I think speed was not the reason why.
Well, if you compare Rust to and how they tackle memory management, the borrowing system,
yes.
If you compare that to Python, which does garbage collection, garbage collection is not efficient.
Okay.
And that's a bit why people typically say that Rust is way more performant than Python or something like Go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially with Go.
Yeah. But I think like just the promise, like this thing is faster. I don't think this is going to attract people just to use it.
Yeah, I understand your point.
There needs to be a bigger problem than speed.
But also you mentioned like
because you can parallelize for speed. You can do many things to solve. You can throw money instead of having your. I'm always thinking about teams, not like individual people. But imagine like you now need to introduce a new language in a big company. And
also
how much work is that? It's
when you're talking about speed, you're talking about computational speed as well, right? If you have I/O, you have like a REST API, and what takes a long time is the latency. You can put Rust there, but it's not going to make a major impact.
Yeah.
Right. If you have one VM that is overloaded with requests, that's like adding Rust will help. Yeah. But maybe you're better off like scaling and stuff. But also like even the type safety, which I agree, but you can tell someone to use MyPy in Python, right? You also add some type safety.
Yeah.
But people don't usually like it because it's not a free lunch, right? It's not like you're just adding it and you get all the benefits and it doesn't slow you down. It will slow you down.
Yeah. But I see Python moving in the direction of changing many things which we thought is unchangeable. To talk about like removing the GIL, talking about also adding like support for like static typing. I think this is all like somewhere in the discussion in the pipeline. So,
and the question is like, how fast can Mojo go? If tomorrow it becomes a superset of Python and it is by default X% faster, it becomes very easy to transition. Like it needs to have a clear added value.
Yeah.
But I think in many cases, like if you have a bad programmer, it doesn't matter. If you write crappy code, then
that is true. That is true. But it's interesting to see like these new languages popping up that is more or less a replacement of something that already exists.
I
think it's interesting for companies which are really big, which like if they save 10% of the electricity bill from their servers, like Facebook, like I think for them it sounds like also something coming from the Silicon Valley or something. But I think they need to know, okay, does it make sense for me, for my company, for my career? Now you're going to spend how much time learning this? Are you really? I mean, if you're a data scientist, are you really going to? Maybe you will, but
indeed. And you see these parallels in for example, in the more JavaScript-ish domain as well, with Node, where you have now competitors in Bun and Dino, which is
never heard.
Which are more than just a language. You could argue is also a runtime, but it's also like something that replaces Node.js. And I see. I have a bit the same feeling here. Like it's an attempt to replace something that exists, and like you need to come with very good added value to your users to build a strong community around it.
But I think Mojo's case in particular is like I feel like they start with Python. And they're like, okay, but we need this. Okay, let's make that one exception. Okay, but we need that. Okay, let's make this alternate syntax for this. Okay, but we need this. And I feel like
it's further removed.
It compile. I mean, like it compounds the difference, right? So these are just a few examples, right? Like you have this thing that looks like a decorator, always inline. Okay, and then you're using FN, so you're not def. And then you need to specify types, and type is D type. And then you have tensor T, and it's like, you kind of like you squint your eyes. Okay, you think it's Python, but when you actually look at it, like. Or same thing here. Like this is a SIMD vectorized, right? Single instruction, multiple something. And then you see more stuff, like the tensor T, and you see the alias and let and all these things. And it's like the premise was you don't need to learn another language because it's a Python superset. But I feel like in practice you kind of do, right? Because there's no free lunch. Like you cannot get to let is immutable. But like you need to know that like you cannot make it just more efficient just by making it more efficient, right? Like there is a trade-off there always. right? So
Let's see.
see the raises.
Yeah, but we see other languages. For example, I don't know, is Julia still alive?
Is it live?
Actually, I saw a blog post, someone saying that Julia is faster than.
Yeah, but there was the promise of Julia, for example.
Yeah,
And
It's
it was
faster and like convenient, like that it should marry the best of Rust, R, and Python, right? And
I think the original tagline was something the syntax of Python with the performance of C, something like that, or C++.
Yeah, indeed. And so I never tried it. I believe that it's probably a good language. But you see the importance of the ecosystem.
Yeah, true.
It's
true. Yeah.
In the end, this inertia.
And the difficult thing is also like where do you see a language really being adopted from the moment that companies start using it? And as a company, let's take Julia. You have some companies that are built on Julia, but if you need to start from scratch, you're gonna think, okay, is this language the right one for me? Does it have the right community? Can I even find people that know about this? Like it's much more than does this language do the thing for you?
Yeah, but I think for both small and big, I think the best, safest choice is to really select something which is.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So
I think talking about move and shift, I think we saw a couple of articles this week that we didn't cover, but like looks like Microsoft is looking for investing in Rust for the interoperability with C++ and whatnot. Rust seems to be gaining a bit momentum as time progresses, but also
Rust is big.
I think Rust already has earned its place. So I don't want to use it. I don't want to use. No, I mean, I'm working machine learning and
cancel him.
No,
but you probably use it.
Well, you mean I'm using something built in Rust? That's a different thing. I'm using Rust every day, but I don't want to code in Rust.
Yeah,
I don't want to do it, and I think it's a waste of a data scientist's time, and brain cells. But obviously, it has proven its value, and so many things have been rewritten in it. I would call it pure software engineers love it, and so you cannot argue with that. So,
but the thing is a bit, and you sent me something this morning. I want to say that Rust is a bit advertised as general purpose language or something. I can actually try to find that.
Rust is that. Everything is a general purpose language.
Yeah, but and that's the thing, right? And
Bash is a I know people. Oh, you can do it in Bash. Yeah, everything can be done in assembly. Assembly is a general purpose language. Then, come on.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it quickly, because indeed, like it was people. Because for example, you do see stuff with like.
But the thing is, what I sent you is something from a few years ago from Theo de Raad, the guy behind OpenBSD, and the discussion was actually on Zig. A statement on Zig.
Those are all the languages I hear about during the advent of code.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Zig, OpenCamel, OCaml, whatever. Exactly. All these things, like who uses that? Haskell.
Like, it's here on the screen. So Zig is a general purpose programming language and a tool chain for maintaining robust, optimal, and reusable stuff. So it's a big statement, right?
Yeah.
And he criticizes a bit that's a big statement. Like, where is the proof in that? And he says one of the things that Rust has done is to teach everyone that it must lead with a lot of propaganda.
Which is kind of really, like the Mojo thing story.
But I see really people say, you should use Rust for everything. You should use Rust for.
Yeah,
and then you feel like a bit stupid if you don't do it. That's why I tried it. That's why I did it for a couple of months.
Peer pressure, basically.
But there's a big community about it. Like even like going as far as like if you're like being involved in open source, if you contribute to open source stuff, if you're not contributing to something Rust based, you're not cool. Eh?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you have these drivers as well, like community-driven drivers.
I'm too old to fall for that, man.
But that's the thing, right? Like, I think Rust is kind of.
But you're the data science OG. You've seen everything come and go, right?
Yeah, man, indeed.
That's maturity.
I've been there, Gandalf.
Yeah.
But indeed, right? Like, you kind of see Rust all over the place for like low-level stuff, for data frames, for data lakes, or whatever, and even TUIs.
What TUI?
So what is
the travel company TUI?
It is a travel company as well.
Yeah.
No. What does it stand for, Marilla? TUI.
Terminal User Interface.
What is it?
So terminal is like where you would put your CD, your tape, and like you open a terminal as an application in your Mac, and then you can actually like the command line, I guess, like CLI is for the command line interface. A TUI is basically interactive, I guess.
Yeah.
Aren't we using TUIs?
Huh?
Aren't we using TUIs all
What kind of TUIs do you use?
Well,
Paint.
if you open like also, but if you open like the Postgres shell or something, isn't that a TUI also? Terminal user interface. You open it and then like when you work
I
or
see.
SQL.
I don't think so, actually.
Yeah,
I
no?
think it's like
there's-
a REPL.
You think it's more when it imitates?
That's a REPL, yeah. But it more or less imitates
Yeah, it's a REPL, correct.
a something
You
like
think
a
like
window
what
or
was
input
called
boxes or
The old like DOS.
it's a UI but textual.
How was it called? The old DOS file.
The
copy.
commander thing.
But like,
Norton Commander. Is
Norton
that-
Commander.
Is it Norton Commander?
I think
or is that?
But if you-
No.
virus?
Yeah, it was something like
Total Commander.
something like that.
Something like that,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
you could copy left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a TUI, huh?
Yeah.
no, but Vim is a TUI.
Vim is a TUI. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, yeah.
There we go. I think that's an easier.
Yeah,
example.
DOS maybe you don't know what DOS is anymore. But
No, I just
that's
wanted to be
fair.
included in the conversation.
Cool kids now use NeoVim.
Neovim,
that's true.
yeah,
That's true. Yeah,
Sorry,
definitely.
man. Come on, you're dating yourself.
New Vim is the way to
I
go.
know. Yeah. But and then we were talking about Rust. How this?
So NeoVim or Vim is a TUI,
Yes.
and it is a user interface in your terminal, and you see a lot of hype on this. I think you have framework libraries in all languages. I think textual for Python, Ratatui for Rust. Actually looks visually very appealing.
Oh, really?
You have what's the name in Go again?
Bubblegum.
Bubblegum.
Is it bubblegum? or
Nah,
Let's see.
Bakugan. That's another thing.
it is something like that.
Bubble tea.
Bubble tea, thank you. And it's really like you see a lot of the community as well. In the Python community, every other day you see something new in textual that is being built. And it looks very retro and it looks very geeky. And I'm wondering, like, do we actually need all this? I think it's fun. I'm wondering what the usability of it.
Yeah.
Before we get there, which do you? Because I'm looking at the Ratatouille. Actually, I have it on the screen if you want to put it there.
Yeah.
Which one do you think? Well, and I know there's as I understand, they're different. Like some of them can access the graphics card, so some of them look nicer than the others, like the more pixelated and whatnot. Which one do you think is the most visually appealing? Because I think you mentioned Ratatouille, but I thought that the bubblegum one is the
I like bubblegum as well very much. Yeah.
bubble tea.
I think the company behind bubble tea is, I think it's Charm Bracelet is a very creative company, and I think that's visually creative. Like if you go to the website as well, and you see it as well in there too.
Very colorful, very
Yeah.
very cute.
Very cute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they Korean?
You know, but Nemanja is gonna get us canceled.
You need to be canceled at the peak, man. You need to be at the
Yeah,
peak,
the peak.
And then be canceled. Yeah.
But look, this is really cool. And there's actually like the terminal, you can do quite a lot of
You
stuff.
can do a lot,
actually.
but like you can't go as far as to emulate more or less a full window manager, right? Like it's,
Yeah.
No, but where it makes sense for applications which you would run in the terminal. That's it. So,
But it's like,
But what would you run
what do you
in
need in the terminal? Why?
Yeah.
What do you need in the terminal that cannot be in a web app or?
aside from like it's fun.
Yeah. Aside from it's fun.
I'm
Because
just imagining. I'm not like a systems administrator, but I imagine these guys like are doing security and whatever, SSHing into different machines and
That
going
they
into
use,
that they could do
HTOP.
something like that, like network engineers and so forth. That they would need something portable, something which is everywhere, and that they don't have to access from a web browser or something. So I would say those dwellers, Linux terminal dwellers, every day, all day.
but I think it's like, I mean, maybe there are use cases, but I do feel like the most of the development is because people think
Because it's cool.
Because it's cool, it's
Yeah,
geeky,
because-
it's a bit nerdy.
yes.
But like
and,
paint in the term. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, you seen that part?
Yeah.
And then maybe you can show it.
Show what?
I'm just gonna show paint in the textual. It's textual based, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. I think.
Lip gloss.
So someone really created a clone of Microsoft Paint in the terminal using
Reminds me of
Python.
the point and click adventures, man. Huh?
So this is Microsoft Paint rebuilt in the terminal.
Yes.
I think this is a very good example of someone that just thought,
Just has
"Can I do it?"
He just has a lot of time.
Like,
Yeah.
but never thought like, Do we need this?
Should I do it? Does
Like this is
humanity
like
need
clearly
this?
like
Not
can
the
I
hero
do
we
it?
wanted, but the hero we needed.
Yeah.
To be
But it's
honest,
very cool, right?
I think it's cool. But I
Very
think
cool.
it's, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I also think it's fine, huh? Like, it's not a problem. Like, if you just
So-
want to build something because it's fun, not everything needs to have.
Theoretically,
Sorry. If a guy came for a job interview,
Yeah.
and said, "What did you do? Show me your portfolio." It's like, yeah, I made this TUI terminal for MS Paint.
I think it'll be cool.
I would let him do an extra exercise. I would say, this is Python based, textual.
Do
Can
you
you
rest?
now wrap this in WASM and run this natively in the browser?
Hmm.
And then this circle is round.
Exactly.
Or back in the browser.
I've seen like.
Can you run the
like,
browser in your texture?
I think there is a textual web here. Huh?
Yeah,
Check it out. Check it out. Check it out.
that would be good. Yeah,
Textual web.
his brain would probably implode. You know?
Yeah. Oh, look. Check it out. See, you can actually have a
Cool
textual
story, bro.
application.
Cool story, bro. Can you put that in the browser?
But check it out. Like, there are people that do this. Huh? Like,
Yeah.
I even seen people that took textual as a backend to build native applications like Mac applications. and whatnot.
That's a new
one.
that's a new thing.
But then it's like, and again, it's like people thought, can we do it instead of should we?
Mm.
Because even Python, I think even for CLIs and all these things, it's not I'm not sure if it's a very good language, right? In the sense that it's interpreted, right? Sometimes I have issues. I don't know. I know the G Cloud CLI, AWS CLI, DNF, all these CLI tools were actually built in Python. And I even saw a lot of presentations that from Red Hat, for example, that the guy was saying that if someone went on Red Hat and did pip upgrade global pip or something, it will mess up everything.
But I would never build a CLI tool in Python.
Ooh, never. Be careful.
But it is so hard to distribute.
Yeah, that's the
That
point.
is- Python doesn't compile to a single binary.
Yeah,
That's my point.
yeah, indeed.
Like I had like I think I had like the Google Cloud CLI, and then I was trying to upgrade, and every time I'll get like a weird prompt, and then it's because like I changed the global Python version that I was using to 3.12, and that wasn't supported by this version because like there's some dependencies in the back, and then I had to upgrade the CLI to or downgrade. You know, it's like,
we're back to Python distributing Python applications, which is like my
Like,
biggest
this will
frustration.
always be. This is something that 10 years from now we will still discuss.
Yes, indeed.
yes, actually,
Yeah.
there was another article on like the
Python
state of
packaging.
packaging
Yeah.
1 year later, right? So, but we didn't cover. But indeed.
Yeah, and whenever I see something new, and in Python, like a walrus operator, or it's already old, but whatever kind of new proposal, what's called a PEP for, I think, can you just solve the packaging first, man? Can you just deal with that and then leave all the rest? You know, make a standard. You know, like, it's like, man, we cannot move virtual environments. You know, it's still I check every day. I'm like, did I dream it? Like, can we really not move the folder of virtual environment and that it still works? No, it cannot.
Yeah,
And you had to do magic. I have like commands when I move the venv. You know, I need to do some sed voodoo to change all the paths. It's like I feel dirty when I do it. Huh?
And
a shower.
this is,
Yeah.
I have the feeling.
Not that dirty. It doesn't bring me over that line. Huh?
Yeah.
But I also have the feeling like every other month we see a new Python package management solution. We saw last week there was a lot of.
You mean like wheel builder or like,
for example,
or like a project?
It's always it's
Like poetry, like
sometimes it's a pen
poetry,
solving, sometimes
or whatever.
it's packaging, it's building wheel, that's the related stuff. Sometimes everything included. This week we saw Rye, a lot of stuff around Rye.
I heard that also. Yeah.
We saw
That was
stuff around
fun.
Pixie.
Pixie,
like there's so much stuff. I have the feeling that if you are full-time a Python developer, like full-time Python developer, there comes a time in your life, somewhere between 35, 45, that every Python developer, if you're full-time, you're going to tackle this project and say, going to build a Python package manager. Like that is the state of the language.
It's like the XKCD article, like this is crazy. We have so many standards. We should create one to end all the standards, and then like new states, like plus one.
Now you
standards.
have 26 standards.
Yeah. Let's see if I can find it.
No, but if Guido was the benevolent dictator, that's the one thing you should dictate, man. It's like how to get end to end. Because in some ways, after using Rust and coming back to Python, I started appreciating more Python. I was like, look how simple it is. Look, it's really brilliant how the language was built. But man, it misses that last mile. Come on, man.
But I also
so many
heard
people solve it, huh?
I heard from Guido, I think, like in an interview that we're not friends, but in an interview I heard from him.
Because you don't respond to his
Yeah.
calls. Huh?
He told me the other day.
He left a voicemail, you know.
No, but like, so before Python, they literally would zip files and send it to each other because it was all Python pure code. But the problem with Python now is that we have C++.
You would put it on a disk, on a floppy disk, the big one, and then you would send it with a pigeon.
Put it in a letter, wrap it up.
Wheel, because it would be in the shape of a wheel, and you would push the wheel.
But it was an egg before. So
yeah. So you came to your friend and you throw the egg. Yeah.
So it's like, but when it was just Python code, it was pure Python. It was just simple. Like there's even today there's a zip import, right? If you have you zip a Python project, you can open
that's actually useful. That's actually useful.
I think. I've used it, but
at least it puts it together, you know.
Yeah, I used it one time, but I felt dirty afterwards. I was like,
No.
But like I think the issue today is like now there's C stuff, now there's Rust stuff, and it's like now they're shipping precompiled binaries, right? So because sometimes you have like if you do pip install cryptography was one of the first ones to migrate to Rust, and people were complaining because the binaries weren't shipped, so they needed to now install Rust to compile the thing to install the package, right? And I think because Python tries to accommodate everyone, then it becomes harder.
Wait, the wheel should be a precompiled package. I think with wheel you don't have to build anything. If you still have a setup py, I think it will still try to build it. If you have like a tar gz, if that's what's on PyPy, if it's a tar gz or something with setup py, it's going to try to build it locally. Then you have the GCC issues and
I think the wheel is almost like a zip file. Like if you change the
I
extension,
think it is a zip file, but I think within it everything is already built.
It could be.
So there's no need for you to have any build tools if there is a wheel.
Yes, it should be like today. Yes.
But that's the whole revolution that wheels brought to the world of
there's
Python.
like I think I played a bit with it for trying with Rust. Like there's the DLL or dylib or something that the libraries, and then like Python knows because it uses the ABI, the application binary interfaces and whatnot. So it should be all there. But then it also means that if you're building a package for Python that has Rust in the back, you need to pre-compile to all the distributions that you expect. So in your CI, you pay the cost once before uploading. But yeah, and I put here on the screen the how standards proliferate, right? So there are 14 competing standards, which we could easily replace this by Python packaging solutions. And then 14 ridiculous, we need to develop a universal standard that covers everyone's use cases. Situation there are 15 now.
Sorry, and what does Mojo promise? Because they should not say we are faster than Rust. They should say Python, which you can package and ship. If they said that, come on, man. Let's go for Mojo.
I also feel like maybe there should be a project that just compiles Python. So you can, for CLIs, you'll ease that a bit.
Yeah, but how did they solve it? So you see, maybe the most interesting thing they solved. Woohoo! Bam. Need some help?
It's gonna be fine. Everything under control.
Yes. Because if they claim it's a compiled language and you can type just Python, at least some pieces of the Python syntax, then it means it can compile it. So
true, I agree. But I also think there are other tools that are like Codon or something that may be. But I think it's a topic that I have in my head in the backlog. But cool. Anything else you would like to?
Nemanja, anything else?
I'm done.
If you're a long-time listener of the show, we have the code or not, but we're not going to play this time. We're revamping.
We're
going to have a 2.0 version of it.
Gonna be back, bigger and better.
Bigger and better, indeed. So are we okay to call it a pod?
We are.
You want to press the button? I'm not going to say the...
Can I do it?
Yeah, do it.
Which that one?
It's the top left, yeah.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you.
See you
Thanks
next
for
time.
the live stream as well. See you next time.
Nemanja, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Yes.